Hello students, and welcome back to the lore of the Iron Kingdoms with me, of course, Professor Caster. Today we're going to continue to go over the war beast of the Trollbloods, and we're going to be going over the Dire Trolls. Being the largest of the war beast, or at least up to the gargantuan stage, we're going to be going over all four of the major ones, and that it will be the Dire Troll Mauler, Brawler, Blitzer, and Bomber variants of the Dire Troll. And I suppose with the Mauler, he's more of a melee guy compared to all the rest of them that they gave weapons to, because, you know, if they're so big, why not just give them something they can use to beat things with if they don't want to just use their fist? But before we begin, if you guys could, because I see you're out there, please like, subscribe, comment, let me know anything about Warmachines that you want to talk about. It's always very nice to go over that. And please share any of these videos. Let all of your friends and fellow gamers know about this channel, because it does help our channel grow and reach more Warmachine enthusiasts, or, you know, players that just want to learn more about the lore of Warmachine. And again, thank you, Privateerpress, for letting us continue to read your fantastic lore. But without further ado, let's begin. Dire Troll Mauler, almost 18 feet tall with a body of impenetrable muscle and clawed hands the size of a man. The awesome Dire Troll has few equals. In ancient days, these monsters emerged from the forest to fill their maws with screaming victims, proof to primitive man that primordial dread possessed flesh and an appetite. The modern day has brought no respite. Indeed, the only defense is to flee and hope the trolls glut themselves on slower victims. Magnifying tenfold every unpleasant attribute of the regular trolls, Dire Trolls are nothing less than a menace to all life. Epic stories refer to them as deathless and tireless, able to rend metal and effortlessly splinter bone. Whether Dire Trolls speak a language is debatable, but they do possess a small range of verbal utterances and can learn to obey Mulgar Troll. It was Warlock Doomshaper who had the power, will, and courage to add these terrifying trolls to the Trollkin battle lines. Dire Troll Maulers are among the largest and most brutal of the species, too fierce and savage to be trusted with weapons other than their own teeth and claws. They speak a word reserved only for Doomshaper, Kroll, which might represent worship or deification. Many chiefs believe Harlock's decision to summon the creatures to battle was reckless, but they cannot deny the Maulers bring tremendous raw power to the allied Creels. As long as the Dire Trolls can be managed, they offer the Trollkin a great edge in battle. And I've seen a Dire Troll rip a Warjack apart pretty easily, because these things are pretty terrifying. And trying to go up to it as, say, a human, you're not even a third as tall as these things are. So yeah, if you can run, you're gonna hope that your buddies are slower than they are. And if you're caught in the wilds with these things chasing after you, well, you're gonna hope that the screams of others will distract them from chasing you. So yeah, terrifying creature. But let's read over the Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes and see if anything changed at all, because I don't think really anything has changed, because these things were simplistic and effective just the way they were. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And as always, let's start with his stat line. He is still a speed 5. He is still a, well, his mat actually went up to a 7, so he's got a little improvement there. So his hitting power, or hitting accuracy, is better. His defense is 12, arm 18. He's still a Fury 5, so he is a very great war beast to take up if you're trying to get guys with lots of Fury. And his threshold is still 8, so he does get kind of janky real quick. Some of his abilities include Trample, Slam, and Headbutt. And he also has Gladiator as well, so power attacks get an additional +2 to their damage. So that gets him up to a 16 for most power attacks against anything smaller than he is. So he is really good at taking out stuff. His other abilities include, he still has Regeneration. Because he is a Dire Troll, he can be forced to regenerate D3 health once per activation. So he can heal himself up. He also has Snacking too, so if he's killing living models, which you always want him to be doing, he removes D3 points, or he gains D3 points of health every time he kills something because he eats it. Like many large trolls, they eat everything, but this guy can just heal himself a little quicker from it. And then we go over to his weapons, being his big meaty fist. Not much has changed between there. He is still he has a mat of 7, of course, range of 1. And his power plus strength, or his power, sorry, power plus strength is Mark 3, is a 16. He still has his chain attack, smash, or grab and smash. So if this model hits the same model with both its initial attacks with this weapon, after resolving the attack, it can immediately make a headbutt or throw power attack against the model. And this is basically, if he hits twice, he gets a freebie that is a special. So, and getting a headbutt where you can knock your opponent down to the ground and then start, buying in additional fury for free hitting attacks is super broken. But it's even more broken when you add his animus onto it. So the animus has changed slightly from the original. So the rage is a cost of 2, range 6. And now rage says target friendly faction war beast gains +2 to its damage rolls. And rage lasts for 1 round. Now, the original was target friendly faction war beast gains +3 strength. We don't have strength anymore, so now it's just a +2 damage roll. And if you're reading that correctly, it says damage roll, not melee damage roll, but damage roll. So unless they fix this in the future, this means that it's any damage roll. So even for range damage, it gains a +2. I'm not sure if this is an oversight, but we will see in the future. But use it when you can, because might as well gain an additional +2 to range attacks, because Trollbloods don't have a whole lot of major range damage doers, so this little bonus might be a useful tactic for you. But yeah, this guy is a melee buff, and him getting in there with power 18s with his own rage activated at a fury 5, so he can just keep on swinging, makes him almost 2 warjacks in 1, because warjacks can only have 3 focus. So yeah, you wanna get at least one of these guys in most armies. So, and your opponents will hate them every minute. But let's move on. Dire Troll Brawler. Now these guys are relatively new because these guys are a Northkin variety of these guys, so we don't have a whole lot of information from it, but thank you to the Ironkingdoms wiki, we do have a little bit more information drug out for these guys, so we'll be reading off of their stuff. And thank you again, Ironkingdoms wiki, for giving us a whole bunch of lore that sometimes we do not discover in the books, or at least not easily. So let's read it. Dire Troll Brawlers are trained by the Northkin from a violent strain of dire trolls in the northern Imoran. With a desire to crush and devour anything that does not flee before them, they are less intelligent and more temperamental than their southern counterparts. Something they compensate with raw delight in brutal combat. However, lasting bonds can form between northern dire trolls and those who provide them with regular supplies of meat, drink, and opportunities for bloodshed. And like most dire trolls, the opportunity to put their raw strength to the test and eat a bunch of food will draw them out 9 times out of 10. So if you're ever on a trip near dire troll land, best keep your food supplies as far away from your camp as possible, or else you might draw some dire trolls directly into you, which anybody that's ever had to go up against a wild dire troll will know that is not something that you want to happen by accident. So, but let's read over their Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes and see what they got, shall we? And something that makes these guys particularly deadly is the fact that, compared to a lot of their southern cousins who maybe don't use weapons, these guys use flails, which are even more terrifying because, well, a flail gives these guys some reach, and giving any of these guys reach with a weapon is super dangerous. But let's start off with their stat line and see what we got. So they are a speed 5, they are a mat 7 because that was the update, so they've gone up 1. They are a defense 12, arm 18. This guy only has a fury 4, so he's not as crazy as the Dire Troll Mauler. The abilities that he has is he has trample, he has slam, and he has headbutt. And because he's a Northkin variety, he also has immunity to ice and frost damage, so that is great for him. Other abilities include he is a dire troll, so he has regeneration, so he can be forced to remove a D3 damage points once per activation. He also has snacking, so anytime he kills a living model with a melee attack, he can remove that model from play and eat them for a D3 health as well. And his weapons include 2 flails, because, you know, 2's always better than 1, right? So he has a mat 7, a reach of 2, and both these are POW 17, so they are better than a Dire Troll's Fist, who can only be swinging at 15s plus his 2s, or 16 plus his 2s. We just read it. And he has a flail attack, so he gets to ignore shield bonuses, so there you go. On these weapons, he has beat back on both of them, so immediately after a basic attack with this weapon resolved during this model's combat action, the enemy model can be pushed directly 1 inch away from the attacking model, and then this model can follow up a 1 inch, so he can follow him around. So this is great if you're just trying to move guys around or move just people out of the way, especially since you can, you know, swing up to 4 times, and if you're hitting a relatively low defense target, high armor target, you know, they might survive long enough that you can put this Dire Troll Mauler into an even more terrible position for the enemy. And his animus would be Henri. It costs 1. It is a self spell, so it can only be cast on him or his warcaster or warbeast or warlock. We'll get that right at least once. The spellcaster gains retaliatory strike. Henri lasts for 1 round. If a model with retaliatory strike is hit by an enemy model or an enemy melee attack during your opponent's turn, after the attack is resolved, the model with the retaliatory strike can immediately make 1 basic melee attack against the attacking model. A model with retaliatory strike can only make 1 retaliatory strike per turn. So this is great because he's swinging at a range of 2 at a 17, so if he's hitting a guy with relatively low armor, he's just going to go right through him. Now, of course, beatback doesn't pop off with this because it has to be during your activation or his activation for that to kick off, but being able to swing back and him being a Dire Troll as himself, he can take at least 1 hit relatively, so he can, you know, if he's hitting a Warbeast, he might be able to clear off an entire branch, making, you know, that Warbeast pretty insignificant in comparison. So he's still super dangerous and very good if you want to get him into your army, because having a reach weapon is always good for any Warbeast. But let's move on. Dire Troll Blitzer. Dire Troll Blitzer's impossible creation plucked from desperate Trollkin imagination. Strains crudelity. When King Leto granted surplus Signarin weapons to Chief Ironhide, the king could have never anticipated their ultimate application atop live siege engines. In what was undoubtedly an episode of drunken bravado among Trollkin warriors, a rapid-fire slugger cannon was strapped to the back of a slumbering Dire Troll. The combination of firearms and Dire Trolls held obvious merit as a siege engine able to bound across the field towards its enemies. The final obstacle was overcome by chaining the Trollkin's arms to keep it from reaching over its head and grabbing the pygmy troll ace operating a cannon and gobbling it up. Pigs have embraced this configuration with surprising enthusiasm and consider their aces inviolable heroes. Pigs have always enjoyed the unusual affinity with Dire Trolls, insofar as the creature can endure the towering beasts, and the Trolls appear to return this in regard. That is, Dire Trolls generally seem to enjoy the company of their diminutive cousins, and generally will not eat them unless there is no other food available. And the strapping of a machine gun on the back of a Dire Troll and then just chaining his arms so he can't reach up and snag him is kind of awful, actually, if you think about it. It sounds like a very dangerous game of cat and mouse when the mouse is hiding on the cat's head and the cat doesn't realize it. Of course, I imagine the Dire Trolls do realize there is a guy with a machine gun on his back shooting at enemies around him, but maybe he just maybe he enjoys it. One can crush into the enemy, the other can shoot into it. Saves probably a lot of issues and gives Trollkin a lot of necessary firepower for ranged weapons at least. But let's read over his Mark III to Mark IV changes and see if there is any. And of course, as always, we will start with his stat line. So he is a Dire Troll Blitzer, a speed 5, mat 6, rat 6. So his rat actually went up 1, so it's a little bit more better than it was before. It is better than it was before. His defense is 12, his arm is 18, he is a Fury 4. He has the ability to slam, trample, and headbutt. He is a gunfighter, which allows him to shoot out of melee. So if the Dire Troll is in melee attacks, the pig can shoot people outside of that melee range. So that's a very useful spell. He also has dual attack, so he can make ranged and melee attacks during the same activation. And as per usual for Dire Trolls, he has regeneration, so he can be forced to heal D3 damage points from himself once per activation. He also has the snacking special ability, so if he kills a living model with a melee attack, he can eat them and heal another at D3. We lost some abilities on here as well. We no longer have Shooting Gallery. Unfortunately, I guess Shooting Gallery was seen as a little bit too OP for this guy. Shooting Gallery used to give a +2 to range attack rolls against models within 5 inches of him. I imagine because they increased rat, maybe they just kind of split the difference. That's why they gave him a rat 6 instead of a rat 4 like he had previously. That could be it. His weapons are a slugger, so that is a rat 6, range 10, rate of fire D3, so you can shoot more, you can shoot less. And I've seen slugger weapons with the slugger crews do some devastating damage to warjacks, warjacks, I said it right. Warjacks on the field of battle, and these are heavy warjacks, so sometimes these guys just can shear off metal like no one's business. And not only that, but with him, he also has the other gunfighter ability, because there's one that can shoot out of melee, and there's one that can shoot things you're in melee with, and he has both. So he can shoot out of melee, he can shoot in melee without suffering any kind of negative effects. So makes it very, very useful for that, and gives him a bunch of additional attacks if he's going up against a particularly hard melee target. His melee weapons include his claws, because, well, he's a Dire Troll Mauler, and I imagine they didn't give him weapons since he already has a weapon on his back. His claws are a mat 6, range 1, POW 15s, so it's still a pretty significant swinger on here. And his animus include Irresistible Force. The spellcaster gains Bulldoze. Irresistible Force lasts for 1 round. When a model with Bulldoze is base to base with an enemy model during its normal movement, it can push that model up to 2 inches directly away from it. A model can be pushed by Bulldoze only once per turn. Bulldoze has no effect when a model makes a trample power attack. So that is the same. Basically, outside of the Shooting Gallery being removed, this guy is exactly the same as he was before. Still has all his dual attacks, still has all his fun stuff. He just has the ability now to shoot into melee without suffering any kind of ill effects, and then he can shoot out of melee at his choosing. So yeah, he is a very, very good range guy, especially if you're running a ranged specific army. You want to have one of these Dire Trolls in your retinue. So, but let's move on. Dire Troll Bomber. Beleaguered Trollkin kits have had to draw upon their inherent cleverness and versatility in the face of enemies pressing in on all sides. One of the most effective adaptations was bolstering their armies with heavily armed Dire Trolls, resilient and fearless cousins able to carry an absurd amount of lethal ordnance. Among the more extreme of these additions is the Dire Troll Bomber, which is armed with kegs of volatile explosives. The powder used in firearms is in a combination of 2 separate alchemical reagents that must be carefully weighed and mixed for useful detonation. Other explosives do exist, however, such blends favored by miners and loggers who work in the most remote areas. These powders are unsuitable for firearms as their volatility would destroy guns and cannon barrels, but they make for ordnance lethal to those who caught in the blast. The Trollkin stuff barrels with these dangerous substances to create crude but powerful bombs. Some Creels have successfully taught Dire Trolls to hurl explosive kegs. Though Dire Trolls cannot be reasonably trained to do any one thing with regularity, they seem to enjoy the fiery eruption and throw the powder keg bombs at the enemy with almost cheerful enthusiasm. Foolishly brave pygmy trolls accompany these enormous bombardiers to light the fuses of their dangerous payloads. Yes, because putting a pygmy on the back with a big old torch makes these even more safer and ridiculous in the simplicity of this. This is not a gun. This is literally giving them explosive barrels and be like, throw them at the enemy. And they do. How simple is that? And I imagine with the power of a Dire Troll, you can probably get those pretty lobbed out pretty far, or at least relatively speaking. Maybe not as far as like the spear throwers, since barrels aren't really meant to be thrown like that, I imagine, but the ordnance these things probably let off is pretty staggering. And I've seen them hit, and if they're used by the same alchemical creation to destroy rock. So imagine what that does to metal or human flesh. So, but let's read over their Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes and see if anything exists. And let's start with their stat line. So he is a speed 5, a mat 6, a rat 6, because they increased it from Mark 3 to Mark 4. So he has a better chance of hitting when he's trying to throw at. He is a defense 12, arm 18, fury 4. He has the trample, slam, and headbutt abilities. He has dual attack because, well, why wouldn't you give a ranged guy that throws barrels dual attack? That wouldn't make any sense. He has regeneration because he is a Dire Troll, so he can be forced to remove a D3 damage points from himself once per activation. He has snacking, so anytime he kills a guy with melee or a living model with melee, he can remove that from play and gain a D3 damage points. Now let's go over what we all want to see. How much damage can a barrel full of high performance explosives do to another player? So, powder bomb. It is a rat 6, range 8. As mentioned, it is a barrel, not a gun, so it probably doesn't shoot as far. Although, you can give him Farsight with another ability, so you can help fix that a little bit. Rate of fire 1, and an AoE of 3. And for everybody that needs a recap on what the new AoE is in Mark 4, it is 3 models up to 3 inches from the original model hit with blast damage. So that is a pretty staggering ability. I would say it's better than the AoE 4 that it had before, but since we no longer have AoEs like that, it is just as good at clearing a lot of guys. Maybe it's not as good as clearing out entire units like it used to do, but it's still pretty good. So it is a POW 16, so it does pretty staggering damage, especially if you put him up next to his Dire Troll Mauler cousin. So you can get that kicked up to an 18-10, which is enough to clear off most things. And then not only that, he has a forced reload 1, so he can be forced to toss another ranged attack at somebody. So, and at a 16, that is still a pretty significant amount of damage onto whoever you're throwing it at. As mentioned with the AoE, it's 3 models within 3, and it does the blast damage of 8. So if you're hitting low armor models, you're gonna probably be clearing them out pretty regularly. His melee weapons include claws, of course. So mat 6, range 1, POW 15s, and of course these are both melee, or these are both hand weapons. So it does give him the throw ability as well. Hey, look at that! He actually has his Animus has Far Strike. As mentioned, this helps fix some of his range issue. Spellcaster's ranged weapon gains Snipe. Far Strike lasts for one turn, and it only costs 1. An attack with this weapon gains +3 range, so it gets this guy kicked up to a range 11 when he casts it. So for only 1 fury point, which gives him 3 additional fury points if you like to max him out. And that is a bunch of range damage coming down below from a lot further out than most players expect. So that is the Dire Troll variants that are not elementals, which we'll be getting to next week or next time we discuss this. Thank you guys so much for sticking around and watching this. And again, please like, comment, subscribe. It does help the channel grow. It does help get into the fun algorithm stuff so we can spread this lore out to more players and hopefully get more people in the shops again. And please share any of these classes on wherever you want to share them to your friends and fellow gamers alike, because that also helps as well and helps keep the channel growing, because that does always help. And thank you again, Privateerpress, for letting us read your fantastic lore. And as always, class dismissed.